welcome to Steak Bites, where we carve out space for meaningful conversations that go beyond the grill. I'm Kara Smith, your host and fellow enthusiast of all things tasteful and fulfilling. Today we're gearing up for Mother's Day by exploring how we fuel our children and our own bodies, a topic that quite literally nourishes both mind and soul. We're going to delve into all aspects of nutrition as it relates to the keto carnivore lifestyle with practical tips to fuel your family. We're excited to bring you a conversation that invites us to savor the complexities and joys of motherhood relating to fueling minds and bodies. And who better to join us on this journey than Maria Emmerich, a nutritionist, international best-selling author, speaker, chef, and owner of KetoMaria.com, whose passion insights will add a dash of spice to our exploration. Together we'll uncover common purpose with the importance of protein at home and on the go, leaving you hungry for more. Thank you for joining us, Maria.
Oh, it's an honor to be guest number one. Thank you so much.
Yes, we do appreciate you being here on our maiden voyage of Steak Bites.
Well, I just want to say thank you. And when you asked right away, I was like, absolutely, I will drop. We just moved. I will drop everything for you because my whole family, the way you responded, you sent us your beef sticks, which were the juiciest beef sticks we've ever had. Let's just say that. You know, sometimes they can be dry. No, they were just like super fresh. But we noticed there was just one ingredient that we're a little sensitive to, and you're like, hey, it's out. We'll do it, right? And you sent us a new batch and even better. And we were just so grateful that you took our feedback to heart. Like even my kids were like, wow, that's so nice of them. And I have to tell you, we have to travel. I speak a lot around the world, and your beef sticks are in my carry-on at all times.
I love that. That's gosh, it was even a couple weeks ago. I was traveling, and of course they're in my backpack all the time as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a young family that they had a little girl that was about the same age as my youngest daughter, and it was a later night flight, and I could tell she was getting a little bit hungry, and I was like, hey, just, here, have this beef stick. Like, you don't want to deal with hungry children. Like, take it and enjoy. So I love that.
It's hard to find good protein things on the go, and that's just beef sticks have always been our go-to, but yours is definitely like everybody was like, this is so juicy, like it's just fresh,
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. Being able to, have the entire supply chain, that definitely makes a difference. Makes us a little more, adaptive when we need to be able to change some things. So that's wonderful. We appreciate that insight.
Well, we appreciate you.
Well, Maria, I'd love to dive into nutrition, with the keto space, the carnivore space, as we're talking about clean protein. That's something that's definitely near and dear to my heart, especially when I think about fueling the bodies of my children, 2 little girls, 2 and 4. Frankly, I will send beef sticks in their backpacks to preschool. They go 2 days a week. They always have one in their backpack just in case. Frankly, they do get a little bit hangry sometimes, and sometimes the snacks that are at preschool aren't exactly what I'd like them to be. So we've coached both of our girls that, hey, you're hungry in the middle of the day, please ask your teacher to go to your cubby, grab that beef stick out, and just make sure that your body is fueled with adequate protein. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around that.
Well, luckily, we adopted 2 children, and when it came time for them to go to school, my husband and I looked at each other like, I'm not ready for them to go. And there's, a lot of bonding things that needed to happen, and so we decided to just homeschool. And now they're teenagers, and they prefer homeschooling. They enjoy it. So that's one hurdle that we don't have to jump over when it comes to, what we feed them. But even in the homeschool space, like the classes will teach them about nutrition, and they're like, that's just sugar, like they understand more than, and again, like when I was in college, I was taught that same stuff that they're being taught. So it's still a little frustrating that people fear protein when that's like the building block of every single part of our body. If you want beautiful hair and skin and nails and be fast, and that's what we teach our kids, like there'll be times when they go to a birthday party and have a cupcake or whatever. And it's nothing I'm going to get mad over, but they'll be like, "Oh, I don't feel good." And it's like talking about like food, what you put in is what you put out, and how this is why we make foods a little bit differently. Like we just don't buy the prepackaged foods at the store. If we want a cupcake, hey, I have a whole sugar-free kids cookbook and we'll make one of those. And sometimes like now I can find them, they'll pass on the candy or the cake, and they'll say, "Hey mom, could we make your ice cream or your whatever?" Just because we don't use sugar or anything like that, and they feel better and they like to be the fastest, strongest, boys out there. And I love that they care about their health and how they feel.
Absolutely. I love that you said that as far as them being insightful about their bodies. That's one thing I really try to coach our girls of listen to your body. What is it telling you? And it's nothing against the way I was raised and mainstream society. Let's put it that way. But there is a lot of those signals that tend to be kind of ignored.
Yeah,
So really coaching ourselves. I've had to kind of recoach myself, frankly, of listening to my own body, but then conveying that to my children as well. Of hey, what is your body telling you? Is it telling you
exactly.
it's full?
Yeah.
How do you feel after you eat that? So that's great insight.
And it's nothing against our parents, but sounds like I was brought up the same way you were. And sometimes my mom feels bad. I was like, "Mom, but we didn't know any different. You didn't know any different. We were living the society norm, right? I didn't know what hunger was because we just ate,
Sure.
you know? Hey, you want a bed night snack? Sure, I wasn't hungry, but it's like we were gonna fade away in the middle of the night if we didn't have that bed night snack. And it wasn't a beef stick. It was like, toast with peanut butter and honey, which is just, and it wasn't a natural peanut butter either. It was just, she feels bad when I talk about that, but I was like, "Mom, but that's where I was. We all were at that point at one time, and we're learning. And the point is that we evolve and change and become a better self. Um, I don't know. It's not coming from a judgmental place whatsoever. It's becoming more and more prevalent that we have a severe problem with children right now, um, with food and the abundance of non-nutritive food, I should say, maybe like substance, not really food, but people aren't seeing that as substance. They see that as, like a Cheeto is just, that's a snack. It's like, well, that's not fueling your body in any healthy way whatsoever.
Absolutely. I do look back at my childhood and feel incredibly blessed that I was raised where I was, and I was raised on my dad's fourth generation, I'm fifth generation on the family ranch to where we always had high quality beef in the freezer. So I'm so thankful for that, that was at least, the base of my protein intake. And I've grown to see it a little bit differently now, especially that I'm raising children. Of course, we have a direct consumer beef company, but it's more of the like, let's focus on the protein. Let's focus on that really high quality fuel and see what your body's telling you. What is that feedback? How do you feel? But when I think about beef, I'm like, well, that's just such an incredible protein source that was made in that the way nature intended it, and just to be able to feel your body. So let's have that conversation around that first, and
But not
then
just
say other
protein.
things.
But it's not just protein. People mistakenly think these superfoods are like kale or blueberries. But if I put a plate of kale in front of you, a plate of blueberries in front of you, and a steak in front of you, which one has the most nutrients?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's the
That's
steak.
steak is
But
where I'm.
people but people don't realize that because their doctor's telling them to eat a plant-based diet with a little bit of protein.
Mhm.
But it's the complete opposite of what you want to do because, we won't get into the anti-nutrients. That's maybe like another conversation down the road. But when it comes to, we all want to feed our children the best that we can. And when you look at where the nutrients are, what they need to grow is in that protein. My children are from Ethiopia, and when we adopted them, they were 1 and 2.5. and they were so small they weren't even on the growth charts. My 1-year-old was like a tiny newborn. Seriously, I'm not kidding. And within a year, they were at the 50th percentile, and we were feeding them entirely keto. I don't tell people they have to feed their kids keto, but that's what we ate, that's what they ate. So they do not need carbohydrates to grow, but their focus was protein. Protein was the center, and those children just begged for protein because it was something that they never got in Ethiopia. Protein is the source of our growth, of our cells. We talk even about serotonin. Nobody wants to be the mother where the kid's having like a fit and, having a bunch of like mental breakdowns. It happens, but when you look at serotonin and GABA and all of these, neurotransmitters in our brain, they come from amino acids, and amino acids come from protein. So if you want to help your kids with maybe they have anxiety or they have depression, like get the meat on, get the beef on. It is a true superfood in many aspects of life.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear that. Do you have any thoughts or insights for our listeners on of how to frame that conversation with your kids as far as whether it's the presentation or the type of food or just how because a lot of parents typically deal with their kids won't eat it, and that becomes one of the big source big hurdle to get over as far as feeding your children. We actually inadvertently experienced that. It was my oldest daughter, the first time she took a road trip with my husband, and I was pregnant with my second daughter. They needed something on the go, and my husband's like, okay, well, we'll just stop at a fast food place and grab her a burger because we know she eats burger because she eats a mountain of it at home. We stop at the fast food place. He gets a burger for her. She literally would not touch the burger patty. She would eat everything around it because it was not the same. She was boycotted the fact that she's like, nope, this is not the same as what it is at home. So that's
I'm with her. And those patties are like hockey pucks.
Yeah, she and both of our children are a little bit, I guess you could say, bougie in their food choices, especially their beef choices. But we don't have issues with them eating protein at home because it tastes good and they love it. But if you have any other thoughts on, from that perspective of being able to help parents with whether it's recipes or sourcing, etc., to help them to be able to, fuel their children's bodies.
Yeah, I mean, that's my boys were a big part of helping me write my book. It's called Sugar Free Kids, and Halle Berry wrote it with me too because she's very, she has kids kind of the same age as I do, and we used a lot of comics, like characters, to kind of describe like where the nutrients are and how it makes you healthy in this way and that way, kind of like in a kid explaining type way. When I read a book or like a magazine, I like a magazine where there's a lot of graphics and this and that, so I try to make it very easy to read. But my biggest thing is it depends on their age. If they're so young where they're not driving, they don't have any money, obviously when they're at school, whatever, but when you're at home, you are in control. But this is my biggest tip, and this is what has helped me a lot. Have them make it. And that was a big part of the Sugar Free Kids book, is that 70% of the recipes are so easy. As long as there's a parent assisting them, they can make it start to finish. And I think it's a good way to learn how to read directions, follow directions. But then when you come out with a creation that your whole family can eat, you feel pretty empowered, even if you're 5, right? My youngest, he never wanted to eat any seafood, so I taught him how to make scallops when he's only 4. It's 90 seconds inside, very easy. And man, he was so proud when we all ate it. He still loves scallops, but he never would have touched them if he wouldn't have been able to make them. I'm not saying you have to have your kids make scallops, but when you're making burger patties, have them, make them, pat them together and season them up, and cracking eggs if you're making breakfast, like have them be a part of that, because it is, and it's empowering that they are providing for their family a meal. So that's my biggest thing. And I mean, I have recipes for gummy bears, for Pop Tarts, you name it, and they're good, but it takes time to make. But I think that's also important skill that most people don't have anymore is cooking. And I don't like to clean, so I can't judge somebody that doesn't like to cook. So if you don't like to cook, there's a whole, I have slow cooker and Instapot recipes because they make it for you. But again, the kids can put it into that slow cooker, turn it on, and then be like, hey, I made this, right?
I love that ownership, and frankly that intentionality of what you're doing and how you're teaching them that, to be able to fuel that kind of love and appreciation in their life.
And one thing,
That's
I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say another thing too, like, so your kids like pancakes, right? Well, you want to try to get more protein in them. So I have these protein pancakes, right? So I was making them. I love my mom so much, but we were at their cabin, which is in the north woods of Wisconsin, at the shack where I'm cooking outside on a griddle because it's, such a small place. And I'm making the pancakes. I love this place dearly too. I'm making the pancakes and breakfast is ready. And my mom says, okay, everybody, breakfast is ready, but the pancakes are healthy because Maria made them. Don't do that. Just treat it like, oh, we're having pancakes today. Don't bring it up. See what happens.
Sure.
They're different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. We one of these days we'll probably get a call from preschool, because we make sure we teach our children where everything comes from too, so they can really appreciate that it is bigger than just us, and knowing that of course we ranch, we raise cattle, and they love cattle, and they love the lifestyle, and they love all of the animals.
Yep.
But yet I do think it's important that they know where things come from too. So the fact that they know that beef comes from cows, they, of course, aren't completely involved in the entire process of everything, that
Yep.
they do have that connection back with where their food comes from. They do understand that, to the level they can at 2 and 4. But I'm sure one day we will get a call from school or somewhere of like, hey, do you know that your daughter told this other kid that her hamburger comes from cows? And I'd be like, yes.
It's
Well,
true.
that's true.
It's,
So
well,
that is okay.
that reminds me, I'm a bow hunter and I bow hunt in our yard here. Well, we have a big 80 acres. So I bow hunt here and my kids help me dress it. We do all of it. Um, and bow hunting is not easy. I spend hours and months and like hours every day, and I do it all fall because I love it. I will wake up extra early, so I spend a few hours in the morning as the sun rises sitting in my tree stand. And so I posted a picture on Instagram of this massive buck that I shot the other year. And literally, I think I lost 3,000 followers in an hour. And I was like, what? People, if I would have posted a picture of a steak, they're like, oh yeah, super likes, right? But some lady messaged me, they said, Maria, you should be like the rest of us civilized humans and buy your meat at the store. Really? We are so
Yeah.
removed from where our food comes
Yes.
from. And that's why I love that you teach them.
And that is something that that's very passionate, or sits very deeply with me, I guess we could
Mhm.
say. And that was part of the reason that we started Colorado Craft Beef and went direct consumer, was to have that direct line to a consumer, because we're 3 to 4 plus generations removed from where our food actually comes from.
Mhm.
So really appreciating what it takes to put this food on the table. Man, I think that's a lost art, and that's a lost conversation. And I really do want my children to know that, experience that when the time is right, because I do have a different kind of relationship to food and relationship to what we do, because of the thought process of honoring that entire life cycle, and the fact that that animal did give up its life for my life to continue. And that's
Mhm.
something that I take very personally, to make sure
Mhm.
that they do have the best life possible, to
Yes.
know that it was worth that, honoring that, and it was worth that sacrifice.
Amen to that. That's so true. And that's the thing. I wasn't, I don't shoot a ton of deer, even though I had 12 deer tags this year because there's so many deer. If you don't have hunters, they're going to die from starvation, get hit by a car, and hurt somebody. Like it's a limiting factor. You need limiting factors, otherwise, the herd takes over. And
Absolutely.
we respect that animal so much because it feeds us like almost the whole year. You
Yes.
know, we use every part. And it really broke my heart that someone would think that because it's like it's not DoorDash. Like that's not where our food comes from. Like it takes hard working people like yourself and your family to go out there in the middle of the winter when it's cold out and you don't want to, so other people can nourish their body.
Absolutely. That I love that conversation and that thought process of that mindfulness and the intentionality of what is going into our bodies and what where that food came from to begin with and all
Yeah.
of the pieces that came along with that.
Mhm.
I do think that is something that could help parents to have more of a nuanced conversation with their children about
Mhm.
food and how they're feeling their bodies, kind of understand the why and that conversation of where that food really did come from and how it got to their table. And then as you mentioned, how you're having the family time and being able to actually cook it and
Yeah.
make it more of an experience,
Mhm.
not just a consumption, a consumptive habit.
Right. But like it's all about family time. And the whenever we make a steak, my son is like, "Oh, I gotta make a sauce." I'm like, "Okay, Kai, you have to think ahead of time before the steak's already on the grill."
Sure.
You know, you gotta that's gonna take time to make that. But I just love that he wants to be involved or like make a sauce for his burger yesterday, and these are real conversations that I just think are really special times that families can have together. And the whole idea of having family dinner together, it's not that you have to eat together to, you know, have this magical time. It's that you do something together. So maybe that you have a lot of activities in the evening and you can't actually have dinner together. Well, make your meals, do your meal prepping together or do something together with the food. So then they know, like when they're eating it on the school bus on the way to their football game or whatever, they can remember, oh yeah, we did this together. Or, just little planting little seeds like that, I think are, I don't know, really cool.
Absolutely. Those are cherished moments and things that really will make an impact and can make a difference and hopefully change the trajectory of kind of our consumptive nature as well, to be more mindful about where our food comes from.
Absolutely. I do think it's something that I see in the United States versus other areas. I have been blessed to be able to speak in Europe and all these other, Russia, you name it. And I remember being at a few meals in Europe where the waiter knew exactly where the cow was raised, where the pig was raised, what the farm name was. Like, I thought that was really enlightening. Like we don't know that. Like he knew exactly this tiny little farm, and it was just very very cool.
Mm-hmm. We're definitely seeing a shift in that. And that's part of what has helped to build Colorado craft beef to where it is. Of people really do want to have that connection back with their
Mhm.
food. They want to know, basically shake the hand of the person who raised that product, or
Yeah.
at least have a face
Mhm.
of the people, have that connection back to agriculture, but food production. So I love to see that there is that shift, and I appreciate what you're doing to help continue with that mindfulness, and the tips that you provided today.
Well, I just want to leave this, one more thing with people. Like, one cow could feed your family for a year, right? You eat all of it. Where when you take out a whole field for crops, like the statistics of how many birds you're killing and other animals that you don't even know that you're killing. I don't think people realize like just being vegan or vegetarian doesn't mean that you're saving lives. I just want people to plant that in their mind because we are not cruel people. We are grateful. Um I don't know, I just want people to kind of plant that seed with them.
Absolutely. That's a great comment, and making sure that we think about that as a society, that something did give its life so our life can continue. So always considering that in the thought process, I do think is a very great thing to keep top of mind.
So true.
Any closing thoughts, Maria?
No, I just whenever my son and I do YouTube videos together, he ends with teach your kids to cook. Or cook with your kids. That's what he says. He says cook with your kids on all of our YouTube videos. And I'm just like, that's so yeah, cook with your kids. That's what I want to leave with.
Great. Where can our listeners find you, Maria?
Well, the easiest place is to go to ketomaria.com, and there you can get to my blog where there's thousands of free recipes. If you go all the way to the bottom, you'll find my YouTube channel where you'll see my son and I cooking, healthy, sugar-free kids things. Um, yeah, that's where you can find just about I do retreats all over the world, things like that. So that's where you can find me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maria. So, as we wrap up today's episode, let's leave you with some food for thought. In a world where every choice matters, let's approach consumption with mindful intention. Seek knowledge, engage in conversations, and shape your legacy with purpose. Remember, each moment is an opportunity for growth and impact. So, stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep fueling your legacy. This is Kara Smith, signing off of Steak Bites Podcast. Until next time, savor each bite of existence and let your actions resonate with the wonders of the world.